Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show is back after one episode in like a week, I think. And that episode came out only because I pre-recorded it with Adam Spinella because I was planning on going to the beach with my wife. Mark Schindler is here with me today, and I'm super excited. We're going to do the subject that I think defined 2022 the most in NBA basketball, and it's that this was the season that I think redefined what it is to be a superstar in the NBA in some ways. You look across the league, there is more talent than ever across the league, and I kind of want to talk about what all of that means moving forward. But I've also been super sick, so I'm very, very happy that you guys are here. And have stuck with the show a little bit after the last week where I have been basically unavailable because I lost like 8 pounds in 2 days because I couldn't keep any food down. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for spending your December 30th with us. December 31st, if you're over in Australia, by the way, it's New Year's Eve. Mark, what's going on, buddy?
Man, well, first of all, I'm glad that you're starting to feel better finally. But yeah, dude, it's been a whirlwind. I tweeted this out yesterday. It feels like it's just been a perpetual Saturday, since like the 23rd. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I feel like I haven't, I've done a million things while simultaneously doing not enough. So it's been wild trying to catch up on everything, the last week while also staying on top of family coming in, all that exciting stuff. But we have a ton to dive into, man.
Yeah, we decided to have family over to our place. We were like, oh man, like, we're gonna do first Christmas at our house here in Australia. We're super excited. I spent all of Christmas in bed. We had like 9 or 10 people here. Everyone was having a great time. People were like drinking until like 11 o'clock here.
Yeah.
Super fun. I was in bed trying to keep food in my system basically, and like couldn't function really. It was very disappointing for Christmas, but I'm back. I'm healthy again, and I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So as usual, we'll start with what we're going to finish with, which is Cam Whitmore. Mark's prospect of the week this week is the Villanova 6'7", 225-pound wing Cam Whitmore, who has had an interesting first few games to his collegiate career, and we want to break it down. He just had a terrific matchup last night or 2 nights ago. Can't remember at this point.
I think it was 2.
With Andre Jackson at Connecticut, who is one of the best defensive players in college basketball. Then we're going to, from there earlier on in the show, we're going to talk about the Denver Nuggets, who are one of the hottest teams in the NBA and have been really, really good. They are basically tied with the New Orleans Pelicans atop the West right now. Pelicans might have pulled ahead by like a half game last night. Is that right?
I'm checking right now. I think it's close because I know. Yes, they're tied at 22 and 12, and I think Nuggets are just below.
Right. So really, really excited to talk about the Nuggets because I feel like I haven't talked about them enough this year, especially for how good Nikola Jokic has been. We're going to talk a lot about Aaron Gordon, I would imagine, because I think Aaron Gordon's been one of the most exciting players in the league this year, for how his game has really translated around the pieces that the Denver Nuggets have. But we're going to start with what I think is the biggest topic of 2022, and this is the year, I think, where we've seen the biggest overlap of eras, maybe in NBA superstar history. Mark, I'll just kind of give you the floor before I give my spiel. When I tell you that I think that the league is deeper with superstars than ever, what is your immediate reaction?
I think I would agree with that because, like you mentioned, like when you look at what the top is, and I guess what you're considering superstars, what can deduce it down a little bit. To me, I think I consider that top 15 guys, like the all NBA players. And it's hard to disagree. Like, I think what's so difficult is that, like, I haven't even tried to conjure an all NBA list right now because that just feels like a nightmare waiting to happen. Because I tried to do MVP last week and I went back like a week later. I was like, wow, this was terrible. But I mean, I'm right there with you. I think that there are so many guys who are all performing at a high level, and not just a high level, like a legitimate, like floor raising, super, super impactful level right now. like you can even look at, like, he hasn't played much this year, but I just think like, okay, Brandon Ingram was a clear-cut all NBA guy last year. And he's still reintegrating with what their full big three is now. But then you look at it and it's like, okay, well, now his usage is down, things are different. Like, you just looking at how talented the league is, I think you can definitely project out and say, like, yeah, there's more superstars now than there have been a while. I think part of that is pace definitely plays a big part in that. Pace and just like emphasis on early offense, I think has had a huge impact on that. That's just my guess on that, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm excited to hear what you're thinking though.
So I think that what I keep coming back to is that this is kind of the first time in league history, it feels like, where the intersection of like science with players playing longer than ever has intersected with this intense depth of like prime superstars, like I'll kind of get into like the different eras of it in a second here, mixed with like young superstars who emerged immediately from the jump, from day one, and were ready to go basically. And that's not necessarily normal, where guys are ready to come into the NBA and just be stars by year 4. Like Zion Williamson, Ja Morant being superstars immediately from the jump. Looking back through league history, like that's not exactly typical. Trae Young being able to lead a team to the Eastern Conference Finals in what I remember was year 3 or 4, that's not normal. And by the way, like there's not a case for Trae Young to be a top 15 player in the league right now. Mm-hmm. That's how good the league is. Trae Young is averaging 28 and 10 per game right now. And Trae Young has been phenomenal. And I don't mean this to denigrate him as a player. He's been great. But just frankly, you look across the league, you can't get there. Like I can't at the very least. Maybe other people can. But you just look. There's this era of older superstar, right? Your Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, LeBron James certainly fits into this mix still. I think he still qualifies within this by all stretch of the imagination. Damian Lillard is having a phenomenal year as well. Yeah, like the Portland Trailblazers are in the NBA playoffs right now, based off the standings, because Damian Lillard has been absolutely phenomenal. So that's like the 33 and over tier of NBA superstar. Then you look at like the prime superstars, the guys who like should currently be running the league, but because the older guys are so good and the younger guys are coming, it feels like it's a chase every time. Like your Nikola Jokic, who's won back-to-back MVPs, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I think is like regularly defined as the best player in the league, Joel Embiid, who's leading the league in scoring right now. Like across the, Anthony Davis, who before his injury was a top 5 player in the league. Like it felt like, based off the way he was carrying the Los Angeles Lakers on both ends of the court. Pascal Siakam is a guy that, if any other era, Pascal Siakam averages what he's averaging, which is currently 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. That guy is first team all NBA. Straight up. And we can talk about the increase in pace of play. We can talk about the way that the increase in pace of play has led to the explosion of individual statistics. But it 27, 9, and 7 goes beyond that level to me. And that's how good Pascal Siakam has been this year. And again, like Siakam is a borderline top 15 player, not because he's been, any worse than normal. It's just that the league is so deep. Then you look at the guys who are emerging into superstars and have quickly become them. Luka Doncic just went for 60, 20, and 10. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable. And then you look at Jason Tatum, who led the Boston Celtics to an NBA Finals last year and is an All-NBA player. Ja Morant has immediately turned around the Memphis Grizzlies. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging 30 points a night and looks absolutely incredible. Zion Williamson is leading the New Orleans Pelicans to the top of the Western Conference this year and is the greatest force of putting pressure on the basket that we've seen, I don't know, in a long time. at the very least. So all of these things are intersecting at once across the league. And I can't remember a season where we've had this much talent. And by the way, like in the prime section, I didn't mention Devin Booker. Devin Booker is another guy that's just like absolutely phenomenal. And he kind of like fits in the middle of those two eras of like future stars and like entering their prime stars, right? Like just the sheer number of players that are in the league right now that are performing at a high level. Didn't even mention Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Sneakily, by the way, Kawhi Leonard, if you look at his like per minute plus minus right now, it's like top of the league. Like when he is on the court, the Clippers are like maybe the best team in the NBA right now. And over his last 7 games, he's averaging, I think it is 22.7 rebounds, 4 assists on 54% from the field and 39% from 3 again. Like we haven't even gotten fully operational Kawhi this season. And this is where we're at. The league has never been deeper with stars. There's like not a case for Karl Anthony Towns to be like a top 20, 25 player in the league. That's how good the league is right now. Karl Anthony Towns has made all NBA teams before. So like, I am just blown away by the talent in the NBA right now. There's just no way to look at the NBA in terms of where it is and not be incredibly happy with the product. The product on the court is better than it's ever been, I think. Just straight up. There are more teams that are great. There are more fans that are interested because there are better players than ever. This is an unequivocal successful season for the NBA because we have this incredible intersection of superstar eras that we just haven't seen before league-wide. Mark, that is the end of my rant. I love the NBA. Mark, please.
I mean,
give me it.
I mean, just to go off that too, like think about it like from for me, I think what stands out, you look at some of the mid-tier teams, and that's not to say bad, but like, you know, looking at teams that are on the outside looking in for home court advantage in the playoffs, and those are teams where, okay, if your top guy is playing well, which for the most part, if you're the 6th seed, you have somebody who's playing close to all NBA level. And like, okay, think of the Pacers and the Kings. Like Tyrese Halliburton's leading the league in assists right now. He's averaging over 20 points per game. He's not going to make all NBA this year. Same thing with like, okay, De'Aaron Fox is having the best season of his career, and I would really struggle to put him on an all NBA team. Same thing with Domantas Sabonis. Like this has been the best year of his career. And those are two guys, like, I think in past years, those guys make all NBA teams with how well they're playing.
Domantas Sabonis has been unbelievable this year. He has been absolutely incredible. I do not think there is a case for him as a top 25 player in the league. And that is absolutely bonkers. Like, I can get to 25 before I get to Domantas Sabonis, like relatively easily. And that is not because Domantas Sabonis isn't great. It's because the league is deeper with talent than ever. I just named in the intro to this show, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think I got to like 19 guys just like in the start of the show. And that's not including Jaylen Brown. It's not including, you mentioned Brandon Ingram. I didn't mention him. Like, you can go across the board. Kyrie, think whatever you want about Kyrie. I mean, what he's doing offensively this year next to Kevin Durant is phenomenal in leading the Brooklyn Nets, right? So, like, I can't remember a time where, like, the different eras of, like, the over 30 superstar, the prime superstar, and, like, the theoretical future superstar intersected at once into, like, all being ready to go right now.
Yeah, and another layer too, like, again, like, I think Paolo makes an all-star team most years, and again, like, I think with what the East front court's gonna be this year, I don't know, man, but he's been otherworldly. But yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think it's been pretty special to watch, especially considering, like, I think I always try and not saying that you don't, but I always try and come from an angle of appreciating every era for what it has been. Like, I grew up, you know, getting to watch some, you know, not exactly a great Eastern Conference when LeBron was with the Cavs his first run. You know, you maybe had like 2 or 3 real contenders in the East every year. And even then it felt like a little bit short because, like, again, like, you know, 2013, 14, you have the fucking Spurs and Clippers playing each other in the first round. And that was insane. Like, that's 255. Like, it's different. It's definitely different. So, I feel like it's something that I'm going to need more time to contextualize as the next couple of years go on and how that plays out, because I totally agree with you. Like, I thought Dame was going to take a step back this year, just given injuries. Same thing with LeBron. And I do think like LeBron's taking a little bit of a step back, but that's more like from, being the best player in the world to like still a top 10 player. It is kind of just wild to look at.
Yeah, it's genuinely crazy. Like I don't mean to like rank, like do MVP rankings and everything like that. But like I can't even come close to building an MVP ballot at this point. I mean, Luka Doncic has been incredible this year. Like he just had a 60-20-10. I don't know if we've talked about that enough on this podcast yet. Luka Doncic had a 60-20-10. I don't care if the game went to overtime or not. That is impossible to me. That is like a genuinely impossible outcome to me in today's NBA. How did he do that, Mark? Please tell me.
He was unreal. If we're being honest, like I think that one was tough. The curse of me writing about a team and then them shitting the bed lives on, because the Knicks just lost to the Spurs yesterday. And you can say whatever you want about they didn't have Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett. They lost to this Spurs team. They hung 75 3/4 on this Spurs team. So that's like, no, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, I mean, the Knicks defense has been rock solid in December, and Luka was just, I mean, some of the stuff that he was hitting and pulling out was unreal. The shot he hit with, I think, 3 seconds left to tie the game was a bank-in shot, and it was just the kind of night he was having. Like it didn't matter what defender they had on him. It didn't matter what they threw at him. He was getting everything and anything he wanted because the rim was just may as well have been the ocean.
Right.
That's one of the best individual performances I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And not even like, I mean, that's easy top 5 for me. Like that was crazy basketball, especially too, because they were down 9 with, I think, 13 seconds left. Ended up winning the game. So that was wild to watch. I was almost about to turn my TV off. And then that happened. So that was fun, man. He's, like you mentioned, I mean, he's been unreal. And you could legitimately like, I would not scoff at somebody who made an MVP ballot and he's only 5th on it. So,
well, that's the crazy thing. So Joel Embiid plays for a 20-13 team. He's leading the NBA in scoring. I think I probably would have him top 5 in MVP right now, but I think you can make a credible MVP ballot that does not have him. That's how deep this league. Like if you had Nikola Jokic ahead of him, I'd be like, well, I can't really argue that. If you had Giannis ahead of him, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sounds good. Like I get that, right? If you had Jason Tatum ahead of him, if you had Kevin Durant ahead of him, I'd be like, well, yeah, both those guys have been absolutely like impossible this year. If you had Luka Doncic ahead of him, can't say anything to you. You know what I mean? Like Joel Embiid is leading the NBA in scoring. He has been very good defensively since those first 10 games. And the league is so good that like, I just can't even be like, oh my God, he needs to be there because everyone else has been so good. That's whenever fans are like, oh my God, this guy needs to be here, that guy needs to be here. It's just like, well,
you have to take somebody else out. Player. Like, exactly. Like that's
take them out, man. Like, yeah. And like, I've been there for, like, I'm someone who almost always will answer that question. Like, who do you take out? And I'll be like, well, I'd take out Damian Lillard, take out, whoever, right? Especially like in draft conversations. Well, I'd take out Malachi Branham. I'm not like the biggest fan of him pre-draft last year, right? Ooh, no statement on what he's done the last 10 games.
Yeah,
which has been pretty good.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know who you remove this year. That's the thing. And that's why it's almost like if you have 15 first team all NBA performances, which I think like we probably have had this year based off of literally everything I just stated. If you have 15 first team all NBA performances, how do you sort through that? I actually don't know how to sort through that at this point.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it's really difficult. am part of the reason why I'm glad that I don't have to worry about that is like not having an actual official vote makes it much easier on me because I would lose sleep on that. That is especially with how much money can be tied to stuff. I am not excited about those debates. I'm just excited to enjoy the basketball because like you mentioned, that's like Donovan Mitchell is having the best season of his career. He's almost averaging like 34 and 5 on 50, 40, 90, and he might not make an all NBA team. Like I think
Yeah.
he's pretty close, but like exactly like I'm just supposed to leave that guy off. Like what? It's unreal, man.
Donovan Mitchell. It's like Donovan Mitchell or Damian Lillard, right? So like here are your guards. So you have 6 first team All NBA guards, right? Luka Doncic. You have Stephen Curry. Steph's been out for a little while, but like Steph was hitting what, like basically his 2016 MVP level.
Yeah.
Like he was very close. So you have Luka, you have Steph, you have Devin Booker, you have John Morant, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Damian Lillard, you have Donovan Mitchell, that's 6. You have Trae Young, who I mentioned, who's averaging 28 and 10. You have De'Aaron Fox, who's been absolutely terrific. Like you have Kyrie Irving, who
I mean,
again, like I just want to know Kyrie is averaging 26,
yeah.
5 and 5 on 49, 36, 91.
Yeah, and steadily too, like James Harden's been really damn good since he came
James
back from
Harden's been
injury.
great.
So
Yeah.
like it's yeah, dude. It and that's without like mentioning like I mean he'll be forward eligible, but I think he has guard eligibility too. But like Jimmy Butler's still been really damn good this year, although Miami hasn't. I think Paul George is gonna have guard eligibility again. Like it, and also, man, shout out Paul George's passing this year. Paul George has like hit a new level as a playmaker that's been really damn fun to watch, which is cool. But just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, Paul George is averaging 24, 6 and 5 on 45, 38, 88. That's pretty good.
And what about when Desmond Bane gets back? And
what about
and
when
like he's
like Desmond Bane was averaging 25 a game. Jaren Jackson looks like the best defender in the NBA on a permanent basis, right? Like
also
again,
I mean Desmond Bane, you know what I mean? Yeah, back to that level. But
yeah, like I can't get to the point where I have the guy who is basically the best defender in the NBA. I basically can't get him to where he's like a top 25 player in the league. Yeah. Like that's how deep the league is talent wise, that Jaren Jackson can't really like even be in the, like, I guess he could be in the conversation, but I don't think you're getting very far in the conversation, right? Like, I mean, where would you have Rudy Gobert right now? Who just got traded for how many first round picks? Like 3 first round picks plus 3 other like guys who were drafted in the first round.
I mean, he's not touching the conversation for me right now.
He's not touching the top 30.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like Rudy, like people almost had Rudy like in the MVP conversation 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is, the league has exploded in terms of guys maturing into being superstars while the older group of stars has not yet left, right? And it's led to a transcendent season of basketball. I think I mentioned this. Did we talk about this earlier in the year? There's like 2 teams league wide, I think, that you can say don't have like a true superstar, right? Like Pascal Siakam, I think I would define as one right now, as like a genuine star. The Detroit Pistons, I think, have Cade Cunningham, and he's like a future star. The way that I defined it was either don't have a current star or don't have a future star, right? So like the Pistons think Cade Cunningham is a star, so they're building toward that, right? The Houston Rockets think Jalen Green is a star. They're building toward that. LaMelo Ball has been really good. He had 31 and 10 last night or something crazy. LaMelo Ball is not a top 30 player in the NBA. There's just almost no way to really get him in that mix. Like you take De'Aaron Fox right now over LaMelo Ball, right?
Yeah, I think for what the season's been, yeah.
Yeah, like right now. Not to
Mhm.
say like in 2 years LaMelo won't surpass him. I think there's a pretty good chance he does. But like right now, if you have to win a game, you are taking, De'Aaron Fox, I think, basically.
Yeah.
But back to my point, like there are two teams basically. Like the Knicks, I think, don't really have like a superstar. Like Jalen Brunson's been great this year, but like I think he kind of fills into that level just slightly below. And then the Spurs, like the Spurs don't really have the guy that they're looking for at this point yet. Everyone else has someone to be incredibly excited about. Everyone else is someone that you can just be like, oh my God, this guy's great. And even the Knicks, like, I'd be pumped about Jalen Brunson if I was a Knicks fan. I don't think he's an all-star, to be honest, like completely. But like, I think he has a real case for it. And if he ends up one, I'm not going to like trash the pick or anything. Like I would pick, sorry, Wally Zerbiak. I would pick Tyrese Halliburton over Jalen Brunson. And I thought that was a weird drive-by. But like,
Especially, can we just say too, from like one of the fakest all-stars of all time with that drive-by, like, come on,
you make an all-star team, I'm not going to talk shit on your all-star team.
I will happily, like, if you dish out shit, I'll throw it right back. I think that's fair enough. But yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, it was a weird drive-by from Wally, I thought, to be honest. Didn't really need to do it. Yeah. But like Jalen Brunson has been great this year. Jalen Brunson is currently averaging 20-7 right now. I don't think that you can get to the point where Jalen Brunson is a top 30 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like that's just like, there's not really a case for it right now. And that's not because he's not great. It's because the league is just so deep with talented players. If we're at the point where Domantas Sabonis is like the 32nd best player in the NBA, the league is in a great spot.
Yes.
Like, think about how good the league is. If this guy that you can run an entire offense through, who averages like 19 and 13 and makes incredible passing reads and does all this stuff, like if that guy's not a top 30 player in the league, like the league's in good hands, baby. Like DeMar DeRozan right now is like, he made second team all NBA last year. He's had a great year. Can't get to him in the top 25. You just can't. There's no way you can get to him there.
Yeah.
And it's not a slight on him. It's on the rest of the league elevating and being as incredible as it has been so far. We just named freaking 40 guys probably before we got to Anthony Edwards, before we got to, you mentioned Paulo earlier. Paulo's been really good. Before we get to Tyrese Maxey, who's been good in the minutes that he played. Chris Paul is a name we haven't mentioned because Chris Paul is like the one guy that has kind of slipped a little bit this year. But if he turns it up in the playoffs, I don't think anyone will be like blown away by that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I just am so grateful to get to watch this era of NBA basketball. I think that that's just where I want to end this conversation. We are at the end of the year. We're at the end of 2022. We're at the end of an incredibly exciting year of basketball. And I'm just so grateful that this is my job and that I get to just hang out and watch these guys every single night because, my God, they're doing, if it's not Luka Doncic doing something special, it's Devin Booker. If it's not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's Zion Williamson. If it's not LeBron James, it's Damian Lillard, who's doing something like genuinely transcendent. There's something that happens every single night, it feels like, that is genuinely transcendent.
I agree. I actually do have one last thing to add, just as a quick shout out. Just because last time we did talk about it, we were like, okay, well, let's wait and see what happens. Lauri Markkanen still averaging 23, 8, and 2 on 53, 44, 84 shooting. So it's been for real. Like that's almost half a season of data and he's still there. So just had to shout that one out because I don't think we talked about the Jazz at all.
Yeah. And by the way, like I don't even know what you do with all-star picks this year. Like look at the Western Conference.
That's going to be a fun pod for us to do.
Yeah. Right. Like Nikola Jokic definitely makes it. Zion Williamson definitely makes it. Ja Morant definitely makes it. Luka Doncic definitely makes it. That's 4. I think you have to put Steph on. That's 5. LeBron will make it. That's 6. Maybe Anthony Davis doesn't play again. So you don't really have to vote him. Paul George, I think you have to put on. That's 7. Devin Booker, that's 8. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's 9, Damian Lillard's 10. So now you've got like a free-for-all from everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be I can definitely wait to do that because that is going to be wow. That's going to be fun.
So like that's 10 without Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis would be 11. Then you've got the 3 Minnesota, or at least the 2. So like, let's remove Anthony Edwards from this. And I think we can remove Rudy from this. So like maybe Towns.
Yeah.
Like the Jazz, Lowry Markkanen, I guess, is like in the mix for that 11-12 spot. Jeremy Grant is a guy that's been great, by the way.
Been awesome this year.
Like been absolutely incredible. And I think is like deserving of being in this conversation. Another guy that probably can't make the All-Star team, even though he's been as good as he's been. Yeah, man. It's I can't Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, like one of those guys isn't going to make the All-Star game this year, which is wild. This is without considering Kawhi, who maybe you can just leave out due to minutes and because maybe he just doesn't want to play in the All-Star game because of his
because he's Kawhi. Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the quadricep stuff. Like, who knows, right? There's like 18 guys in the West that would be an all-star, like unequivocally. And then the top end of the East is like Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, I think has to be there. That's 5. I think you basically have to put Harden on. That's 6. Siakam, I think, has to be there. That's 7. Who else?
Jimmy Butler and Bam probably both make it.
I'm not convinced they both make it. I think
one of them. I
guess
I should say one of them has to.
Yeah.
And it will probably be Bam for me right now, just because Jimmy's missed more time and Bam has been awesome. Like maybe other than Jaren, I think the best defensive player in basketball right now. I don't know if I would have Trey as an all-star right now. I know he's been like, there's just the overall efficiency from the field has been pretty rancid until the last couple of weeks. So if that keeps trending up, maybe.
We got to like 9 names before Halliburton.
Yeah, I think he would make it for me.
I think
Darius Garland too. Like Darius Garland, I think would have to make the team.
Yeah, I think
we didn't even mention Kyrie. Like Kyrie would have to be on the team. Jaylen Brown, like
Jaylen Brown's another one. Like
sneakily, Marcus Smart.
No,
he's been what?
No way. Like
no way.
Like that.
Yeah, no,
that's
exactly.
One where it's just like.
But I'm just saying, like if, yeah, that one.
No disrespect to Marcus Smart.
Like 30 and 5 for him to make it. But
yeah, like Marcus Smart has been absolutely great this year. He's been so good on both ends. He's really like taken to playing more point guard more often, right? Like there's so much to be really, really excited about. There's just like no way. I mean, once you get to the names, like you actually run through them. Like, can you put Marcus Smart on over Drew Holiday?
No, probably not.
This is the first time in 35 minutes of talking that Drew Holiday's name has come up.
Yeah. And then like we talked about with Paolo earlier, like, yeah, it is going to be very difficult for him to make the team this year with how
I think he has no chance. I think he has no chance.
Yeah. Damn. This is a good year, man. This is a very fun year of basketball.
It's such a good year of basketball. It's so good. And I'm so grateful to get a chance to see it. Like when I say like, oh yeah, like no chance Marcus Smart makes it. It's not a statement on Marcus Smart. Like that's the thing. Like that's what I want people to take away from this conversation. Like I'm not like shit talking any player. It's just that the league is so good right now. The league is so deep with talent. And it almost has like, this is maybe where we'll close. I feel like this year has like almost redefined what like superstar is in the NBA based off of all of that. Like we talk about guys like pre-draft, right? That come in and we're super excited about like someone like, oh yeah, like this could be like a Bradley Beal kind of guy. Bradley Beal's like not a top 15 player in the league right now. That's how good the league is. And if you end up drafting Bradley Beal at number 3, you're fucking ecstatic. Or if you draft him at number 2, you're absolutely ecstatic and it's great. That guy's probably not a top 15 player in the league. And you probably need another, like an actual number 1 option to be a contender for an NBA championship. Like, think about how good Bradley Beal is. Bradley Beal is amazing at basketball. There's like 5 guys on planet Earth that can create a shot better than Bradley Beal, maybe. He is so good, and he still is like not quite good enough to like be the number 1 guy on a great team, as the Washington Wizards are showing this year.
Yeah.
It's just hard. The NBA is just so deep and so talented and so good. I hope that nobody took like, these drive-by shots as like, can't get Domantas Sabonis in the top 30, can't get Bradley Beal in the top 15. Like, I'm not taking shots. It's just like everyone else is so good. Everybody else in the league is so good that it's so exciting to see. Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break. And then we're going to talk about the Denver Nuggets, who are one of the best teams in the NBA. I think that's basically unequivocal at this point. All right, Mark. Let's dive into Denver Nuggets. I'm going to give you the floor to start because my rant on NBA superstardom, it felt like, went very long. Tell me what you have enjoyed about the Denver Nuggets recently, as they have won 8 out of their last 10 games and look like they're going to be certainly there at the end of the season in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I think the biggest, biggest. There are multiple things to really pull from this. Number one, like Nikola Jokic has been awesome. If you remove, so this is doing some heavy lifting, but think of it like, okay, just taking the last 3 weeks. So that's Xing out the loss they had to Portland where they fell apart in the last minute and Dame went crazy. So their last time games, they're 7-2. They're 6th in offense, 10th in defense. But I think Nikola Jokic has been amazing. He's averaging a triple-double over that span on 61, 33, 81 shooting while getting the line 9 times. You just don't see that. It's been unreal. To see him up his scoring volume the way he has been necessary because of what they've needed from him this year and just what he can get to. But I think, to me, the biggest thing that I've taken from their title chances is Jamal Murray has really started to look comfortable again and kind of back to who he is, or who he can be, I should say. Yeah. And that's been awesome to watch. Their latest game against the Kings, not this one, actually the one before, the one that they won. That was one of the better games from him, I think, in terms of seeing what he can do, bringing that shot making, bringing the comfortability he has off the dribble. And he just has that element of it. Obviously he's not Dame, but the same shot creation type of okay, well, he's taking this contested tough shot that's pulling up from 30 feet and you just can't really do anything about it because he's Jamal Murray and he's in that mode right now. He gets to the rim, which I think is something that they really missed early on in the season. Outside of cuts, having a ball handler who can really get there themselves, I think was something that they missed. And he's really continued to show that. He's been part of they've been better at staggering their bench lineup to make it a little bit more functional, and he's been a huge part of that. And his playmaking's really popped this year as well. I think he's always had good playmaking chops, but this year has been really, really good. And obviously part of that, it helps playing with arguably the best basketball player in the world, but it's been really nice to see him find his footing again because it was pretty on and off for the first month and a half of the season, but it really has felt mostly consistent, even with him not playing back-to-back still.
So I think that where I want to start, I do want to get to Murray in a second here because I think it's really, really important. But I don't think we talked about enough about what Nikola Jokic is doing in that last section that we just did. So Dirk Nowitzki won MVP in 2007, right? In that season, per 100 possessions. So we're going to try and account for pace here, right? Because everyone talks about games so much faster, numbers are inflated, etc. Right? That year, Dirk averaged 36 points, 13 rebounds, while shooting 50, 40, 90 from the field per 100 possessions, right? Nikola Jokic so far, let's even say this. Nikola Jokic, since the start of last season, so we have a 105 game sample, is averaging 39 points per 100 possessions. So averaging more points than Dirk in his prime as a scorer per 100 possessions. 18.8 rebounds. So like dwarfing it while also being the best passer in the league and averaging 12 assists per 100 possessions, right? I think that we're at the point here where it's like almost unequivocal that Nikola Jokic has peaked higher than Dirk ever did. Right? Like this is where we're at with Nikola Jokic. He is every bit as good of a scorer as Dirk Nowitzki was. And numbers bear that out. Like we can just be real about it and like have an adult conversation about it while also being the best passer in the league. He is just as good of a scorer while being the best passer in the NBA. That's how good he is. That's how good Nikola Jokic is. This is a top 20 player of all time. Dirk Nowitzki is a top 20 player of all time. And Jokic's prime has exceeded him. We're looking at genuinely a historic player in Nikola Jokic. I understand that like people discount him because he hasn't made a run in the playoffs yet. And I understand that like people want to discount the fact that like he has won 2 MVPs. There's a reason he's won 2 MVPs. It's because we're looking at a historic player, not just a great player. He is a historically relevant offensive player in today's NBA. There's no way to look at it otherwise. He is as good as Dirk at scoring the basketball, and he is the best passer in the NBA. He has added being Dirk Nowitzki into being the best passer in the NBA. That's impossible. That is what we get to watch every night with Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, he's special, man. I think the biggest thing, kind of like you mentioned, it's that same. It's kind of how it felt for me, like during watching LeBron during his second run with Cleveland. Like, obviously, he was unreal when he was in Miami. Like, I think 2014 LeBron is the best athlete I've ever seen. Like, just hands down, period. Like, I've never seen anybody who has looked that athletic and been that dominant through their sheer physical ability. And obviously he thought the game at an incredible level. Let's not to discount that at all. But I think when you saw him get to that second time in Cleveland, like you really saw the way that he processes and feels the game. And that was just like him hitting a new level and really picking apart the court while also figuring out how to kind of like pump the brakes sometimes. And I think you see that same level with Jokic this year, where it's just like, I mean, he's thinking like 3 or 4 steps ahead of some of defenses, and there's just really not a lot teams can do to counter it. Like things that they're throwing out to try and counter him, he's already countering, and that goes into the scoring and the passing, and it's just been, I mean, it's really incredible stuff. He's unreal to watch. Like he's 27, like he's 2 years older than me, and he is doing this stuff, which is like, to me, that's kind of wild because I remember seeing him play for the first time, like, and the debates of should they trade Nurkic or Jokic, like who do you keep, and like that just is so funny to look back on. And like just thinking about what that entire development track has been like is pretty wild. So seeing where he's at now is like I don't really know how I could go about explaining it to somebody without just showing them hours upon hours of clips going like, this is fucking amazing. Like I don't know how you there's no real comparison for it.
So how has he done it, right, is kind of the question. I think the processing is better. He has a better assist rate than he's ever had in his career so far this year, 45.3, which is bonkers. That's an insane number for every reason. he has a 68.8 true shooting percentage this year. And largely it's because his free throw rate is better than it's ever been. I mean, he just absolutely has figured out a way to live at the foul line in a way that even previously, I don't want to say that like he certainly has never ever in history been a contact avoider, but I think that like officials might be finally coming around to how people play him physically and try to like bump him as much as they can to frustrate him, and they're starting to give him the like respect that he so deserves. It feels like this is like an example, and everybody needs or everyone needs a smile on YouTube in the comments as we're talking here. Brings up, do you think the incredible play we get to see almost everywhere is quote unquote immunizing fans against realizing just how historically great some of these guys are? I kind of think that's right. Like I actually think that because there's greatness all around us, we are underestimating just how impossible some of what's happening on a night to night basis is. And you can talk maybe a little bit about like how it is easier to score in the NBA now than it was in the 90s, I guess. Having said that, like offensive, offensive rating league wide, it's at a higher point than it's been in the last 20 years, no, maybe 16 years, but it's not like at a historic clip or anything. Like it's not like the 1970s. Um, it's like a league history wise, I think it's like in the middle band in terms of like scoring efficiency, in terms of like historical what you can expect on a per possession basis, and pace of play is not like drastically higher than it's ever been or anything. So these numbers that people are putting up are incredibly, they're not like, you have to do some gymnastics to compare eras always. Obviously the context matters here. What Michael Jordan did in the era that he did it in, where guys were like tackling him on the perimeter and like trying to like literally get their hand like on his arm constantly. I don't know if we'll see something like that again necessarily, but what Jokic has done is, if this is the skill era of basketball, he's the most skilled guy right now. And he's weaponized that skill better than I think anyone has on offense since like prime LeBron, if we're being completely real with it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you mentioned, I think the biggest thing is just the counters are unreal. Like I think that's kind of, I think I agree that part of it has been refs for sure, but also he's just gotten really good at, okay, if I get somebody up in the air, I'm drawing contact. Like I'm going into you and getting to the foul line. He's been awesome at that. I mean, like just for reference, like he's always been ungodly touch mid-range guy, but shooting 61% on like floater area shots right now, 64% from 14 feet to the arc. I mean, 61% total on mid-range shots, and it's like it never feels like it's incorrect like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's crazy. I'm trying to think where, I mean, obviously like we can keep talking on Jokic, but the biggest thing has been guys around him too. I think that this team is really starting to click in that way, and that's been important. I have been on record like I thought his defense was a joke to start the year compared to what he's capable of doing. I don't think it's never as bad as I think people try and pin it out to be. One of my least favorite parts about Twitter is how people can clip games, especially in a negative fashion, to try and point things out in a way that I don't think is fully indicative of an entire game. But I also am not going to go out there and defend Jokic and say that he's been a good defender this year. I think it's been a lot better over the last couple of weeks while they've been, on the 7-2 stretch. In the last 3 weeks, I think it's been good again, or at least up to solid. But a lot of it's just been the backline rotations have been awesome from the team. Like they finally feel a little bit more cohesive and gelled together in that facet, which has been really important because that has not been the case for much of the year. Like they were 28th in defense, I think, a week ago, and they're up to 25th, which that doesn't seem like much of a leap, but it's really hard to climb up defensively when you are that far down. So that's been nice to see. Like, I just think overall, again, the rotations have been good. They've been really good playing close to the level of the screen as they like to do. I've loved Christian Brown and his activity. He's fit in so well on this team. Like, there's obviously a million places to go before him, but like even then, like Michael Porter Jr. is still not great defensively. He's been a lot better this year in terms of just overall activity level, being big and in the right places. Like, chasing guys can still be a nightmare for him, but again, it's the compared to what it has been, I feel a lot better about him moving forward. And that's also while noting like he hasn't been quite back offensively, but he's still been very damn good. Um, he just had like his best game of the season in that game, that first game against the Kings when they won. I think he scored 30 in that game, if I remember correctly. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm totally pussyfooting around. Like, Aaron Gordon has been awesome this year. Like, Aaron Gordon's been really damn good. I'm not going to have him on my all defense team at the moment. I don't think that he's been that, but offensively, they've really empowered him to do a lot of bringing the ball up when Jokic isn't doing it. I think part of that was, Jamal missing part of the beginning of the season too, but like, he's been really, he's found like the kind of the perfect blend of, self-creation, because I think this is his highest percentage of unassisted shots in Denver, but obviously not nearly back to what it was at when he was in Orlando, because as we were both aware, that was for what kind of basketball that Denver needs to play, that was too high. But he's cut out a lot of the threes that he was taking in prior years, turning them into drives now, and I think that's one of the things I've really liked, because he's a guy who, no matter how many shots he takes from three, like unless he's hitting like 37, 38% on wide open spot ups, which he has not been doing the past couple of years, other than like obviously like the first full season in Denver, he shot really well, but that fell apart a little bit in the as things went aside. But like, he's been driving a lot more. He's been so good off the catch. His synergy with Jokic has always been good, but this is like the pinnacle of it. He's taking the most shots he has at the rim in his career, and that's been huge for him. It just finally feels like this is the year where Aaron Gordon is like, oh, hey, I'm 6'8", 220 pounds with some ball skills. I'm going to play like that. Because he's always had a little bit of a tendency to get into, like, he loves those fall away shots, especially inside the arc. I think those are the things that have always really tanked him, because like he's good at attacking players with post ups if he's close to the basket. The second it's a mid post thing, it's over and defenses are winning. And I think he's really cut out a lot of that stuff this year, while also doing the post up things that are beneficial from him. It's just been like kind of like the perfect image of what you envision him being in an offense.
It's the perfect complement for Jokic in a lot of ways, right? And it's the exact player that you would want to put in between Jokic and Porter, I think, particularly. The thing that I wanted to bring up with the Nuggets, you mentioned the defense, right? Like, the defense statistically has not been very good this year, but I think it's a little bit better in terms of the way it's going to translate to the playoffs, and in terms of the way that it's going to continue to like climb up the ranks than what people think as they get healthier and continue to get more minutes from their stars. The lineup that they thought was going to be their best lineup this year, right? So it's, Jamal Murray, it's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic. Do you know what that team's defensive rating is right now, that 5-man lineup?
It's pretty good, if I remember correctly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 100.2. It's actually very good. Yeah, it's like would be one of the better lineups defensively in the league. They have a lot of lineup combinations like that feature, let's say, 4 of those guys or 3 of those guys that are actually like pretty okay. The Christian Brown, Bruce Brown combination with KCP, Gordon, and Jokic, that's at 100.9. The Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Caldwell Pope, Gordon, Jokic fivesome, that's at 103.7. The lineup they've played most this year is Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. That's at 112.6. That's like a non-disaster defensive lineup, given how good that offensive lineup is going to be. So the lineups where they've just really struggled is when they have to take 3 of those guys off the court, right? Like, you have to play your Bones Highlands Bones has been fun to watch offensively this year. Has struggled defensively. The lineups with Bones out there have not been great defensively. Your Jeff Greens, the big one, minutes with DeAndre Jordan. We got to end them. They got to do something at the deadline to end those minutes because.
And that's to dive in too. Like, number one, I was wrong on the Aaron Gordon thing. I miscited a stat. I was still looking at Jokic's stats and realized that he did not shoot well his first year in Denver, but point stands. But what's been cool, obviously it sucks that Jeff Green has been out, but to be fair, like he's not been very good this year outside of like he's had some monster dunks, which you know this about me. I love Jeff Green. He's one of my favorite players all time. Hoya legend. But yeah, he's not been great this year. But a lot of that has been the entire bench. Like their bench unit was just blah. Like I think DeAndre Jordan has gotten a lot of flack this year, and I think deservedly, to be honest. Like they've done a lot of like Michael Malone loves continuity in what he's doing. They try and run a lot of the high post split actions with DeAndre Jordan. He can make a nice pass every once in a while, but it's not the same. I don't like it. The defense was so rough with him. And to be fair, a lot of that too, like Bones Highland's been kind of a disaster this year. I think the pull-up shooting and playmaking has been awesome. The inside of the arc stuff has really failed him this year. I think part of that is just sample size, him being asked to do a little bit more creation. I think that can improve with time. And to be fair, like DeAndre is not a good fit with him at all. Like part of what worked so well last year is having Boogie. And I know like part of the reason why they didn't re-sign DeMarcus Cousins was because of locker room stuff. Like I believe Mike Singer reported that from the Denver Post, but like that worked so well because it was mimicking a lot of what you did with Nikola Jokic. And I'm in the same boat as you. Is like, okay, even if they just had like Mason Plumlee or Kelly Olynyk, like I imagine how much better the bench would be. I think that would help Bones a lot. But again, like the defense has been just a nightmare from Bones this year. Like he gets caught off the ball a ton. He's been picked on at the point of attack routinely. But it's been better lately as they like I mentioned earlier, they started to stagger a little bit more, find more comfortability within that. The bit like having as many options on the wing this year, it doesn't seem like substantial, but like just having Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Christian Brown, even if he's not perfect yet, like he brings a lot of really good things that I think just mimic winning plays. Like he attacks the glass, which like one of the best guard rebounders in basketball already. And he's so good functioning even without being a super willing shooter yet. He cuts incredibly well. Like he just knows how to move in that offense, which that's why they drafted him. It works perfectly. But having three guys who can all do that when last year it was like, okay, well, we're pointing at you, Devon Reed. Hopefully you can make shit happen. Like that, having those options this year, I think like you're talking about, it makes them go from, okay, we have no real versatility defensively because of what our wing room is to, okay, well, we can do some pretty funky shit and it might not be perfect, but we have all these guys who can function within our offense and make things a little bit less stringent defensively. And that's huge for what they wanted to do. Right. And they're still figuring that out. But like DeAndre Jordan is playing a lot less in the stretch. I think that's been part of why they've played better bench wise. With Jeff Green out, I believe he has a hand injury. They've played Zeke Naji more. I don't have a definitive Zeke take. I just am glad that he's getting run an opportunity. I think you can see the idea of this is a guy who's a lot more mobile. We can try and do some things with him. He's shooting. It hasn't really fallen yet. But like, again, like I want to see more about how it's going to play out. But I think there are some encouraging signs. Like they'll play him with Jokic. They'll play him at solo 5. They're trying to do more stuff. And I think for a team that is already good, finding more and more, like that's what's like, we're saying all this stuff. And this is a team that's like tied for first in the Western Conference. And like we talked about it a week or two ago, like we just didn't really have a good read on them.
For them, being at the top of the Western Conference is not how they answer their questions internally.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Like for them, they need to make a run to the Western Conference Finals, basically. And I think they can do it. Like I absolutely believe in this team. I think this can be an NBA Finals team. But to me, if I was them, I'd be trying to add a backup center and I'd be trying to add one more wing guy. Right. I don't think I would add a wing guy. I think I would add a guard. actually, if I was them, if I could. Maybe just one more option, because this is something that you kind of brought up with just having a lot of options on the wing, right? Having a lot of different things that you can throw at the problem to solve it, right? On a night to night basis. And this is something that, like, I think Samson Folk has like said this best. Like Samson, who was just on the pod 2 weeks ago, Mark and I know reasonably well. One thing that Samson always says is just this idea that good players and good teams are the players and teams that can do things consistently well, right? Not just can have a great game on a night to night, can have a great game, then a shitty game, then 2 great games, then 3 shitty games, right? It's that inconsistency that is the difference between Pascal Siakam, averaging 28-7 or 28-9-7, whatever he's averaging right now, and Scotty Barnes, who has games that are just as good as Pascal Siakam, like, maybe a third of the time, but then his other 2/3 of the games are not as good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as people that care about basketball and as people who want players to be great, like you and I, like root for players to be great, I think, as much as anything, we want to hold up those moments that are just like absolutely elite, right? Those moments where a guy shows like the best flashes in the world. We want to be like, that's who that guy can be. That's who he's capable of being. And sometimes, like, consistency just, you can't do it on a night to night basis in the NBA. And that's the difference between being a rotation player and a starter and a superstar. The superstars do it every night. Starters do it. The starters might be able to play their role every night if it's a little bit more limited, but a starter might be able to be a superstar a quarter of the games of the year, and then the rest of the games of the year he might just be okay, right? With the Nuggets, by getting more options, by getting as many wing options as they have with guys like Christian Brown, etc., they can just throw a lot of different solutions at the problem and see what sticks on a night-to-night basis. And I think that's really, really helpful for them. That's the kind of wing depth they didn't have, like having to play Davon Reed all the time. Davon Reed is one of 5 solutions that they can throw at a problem on a night-to-night basis. And if Davon is having a great night, or if Christian Brown's having a great night, great. You're in a good spot, right? You're in a great position to succeed at that point because you figured out which of the 4 guys has it on that night. That's why depth is important in the playoffs, even, let alone in the regular season when it's a grind and you have to find different options. Like, you need to find which guys can be great for you once out of every 3 games, basically, if you're a rotation player. And with the Nuggets, Bones Highland can be great for them once every 3 games. But I think they need one more option to be great for them once every 3 games, basically, or once every 2.5 games. And then you can add those numbers up. You add up 33%, you add up 40%. You're getting great production 75% of games. So that's probably, that puts you in a better position, basically. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about like trade deadline acquisitions for certain teams more and more, like finding different things that you can throw at problems on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, I think I really like what you bring up there. I think that's why wings are so fascinating and important. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're like the most important players in basketball, but in terms of like giving yourself actual flexibility, they definitely are.
Most important rotation players, I think.
Yeah. I think like I think the best way to put it is your star doesn't have to be a wing, but in terms of like filling out your rotation, you need a lot of guys who can do multiple things at multiple positions, because it just makes it simpler to be not simple, which is like such a conundrum way to say it, but like best way to put it. I think for me, the biggest thing with the Nuggets that I want to see, like in terms of talking about trade deadline stuff, like I like what you're saying. I think if there was an opportunity to add another steady wing who can be more consistent, or even just has like a little bit more size, I think that there's, depending on what the give up is, like there's interest in that for me. But like you're mentioning, I think getting another guard who can really not even necessarily be a 3-level scorer, but more just, okay, they can play 2-man game, but also they can get to the rim on their own. Like I think that is like the only thing that I would say is quote unquote missing.
Yeah.
Because like I like Bones can do it, but it's just I think that I mean like and again like you mentioned, I think if you are making a move for a different backup big, like that changes the calculus with Bones. But at the same time, too, like okay, you're asking a lot for a second year player to be obviously like your second best guard creator come playoff time, because I do think like again like Jokic changes things with that, but I do think that's maybe like the one thing. But even then, that's like I mean this is a team that could eclipse 55 wins this year, so but again, like you mentioned, everything comes down to playoffs. So I have appreciated the process of how they're starting to try things now, and I'm interested to see where it leads them by the trade deadline.
I agree with you that I'm interested to see how they approach it. Because I do think if I was them, I think I have a real chance to win a title.
I would be.
I'm
I mean,
trying
I'd be
to
all in on being a buyer this year if I'm them.
I'm trying to do something. Like for sure. Maybe they're the team that tries to go get Eric Gordon. Like that's actually an interesting one for them. It's just like I actually don't know how they do that looking at their like financial situation necessarily. Um like you can it'd almost be like, yeah, but like the Rockets have too many guys. Like the Rockets have a lot of rookie scale guys that they have to keep on their roster. They can't just like cut. It's a tricky one. But like in theory, like I wonder if they could get like a third team together and maybe they could try and get Eric Gordon because I think he'd be very, very helpful. It would be very, very good next to their star players. Okay. Mark, it's time. The Mark Schindler prospect of the week. We're going to dive into Cam Whitmore, Villanova forward / wing, whatever you want to call him, 6'7", 225, 230-ish pounds, super explosive, shot creator, physical driving, powerful wing. Has had an up and down start to his college career, I think is the way to put it, at Villanova. Mark, this was your guy that you've been wanting to talk about for 2 weeks now. I kind of held you off last week because I thought we wanted a little bit more tape, and I knew that the matchup against Connecticut was forthcoming. Tell me about Cam Whitmore. Tell me about what your history is. Tell me everything you want to dive into with Cam before we even just really jump into the breakdown itself.
Yeah, so I've known about Cam for a decent while because I know some people who work for Spalding, where he played in high school in Maryland. So my first like real time when I was like, okay, I'm gonna really dive in and watch. I watched his AAU tape from his last year doing AAU, and then obviously seeing him at Worlds this year too. So you get a pretty good idea, like just nutty vertical athlete for somebody who's 6'7", like you mentioned, incredibly explosive. What I think already stands out a ton is like, and like you mentioned, there's a lot to dive into about what this year's been like for him so far. But the stride,
for what it's worth, won MVP of that World's tournament as well.
Was incredibly good there. So I think like that's one thing to really keep in note because obviously he had the thumb injury which kept him out for the beginning of the year. So that's been notable, and has a really good pre-college track record in terms of what his play has looked like. But yeah, it's the explosiveness, the driving ability on top of like his shot really improved later in his high school career and went into becoming like a pretty real shot creation prospect and guy who's like, and when you have somebody 6'7" that can get to the rim kind of at will and is incredibly strong and has some handle, like, okay, you're cooking with grease. That's an exciting player. I think we've seen some of that stuff at Villanova early, in terms of like you've seen him willing to pull from three. He's taken he's shooting 25% from deep, but I don't feel bad about his shot. Like I think part of it's shot selection, which is what we'll get into for sure. But then like the stride stuff has been there, of course. Like he's had a couple of terrific dunks. You've seen some really tough makes in traffic. You've also seen some tough misses in traffic. I think the biggest thing is like in terms of like trying to parse through what he's going to be. I need to see how he fits in the offense as time goes on. Like I don't want to give like too definitive of a take right now because to be fair, like just to be blunt, he does not fit well in their offense yet. And I think that's led to a lot of what his playing time can be like. I mean, I just like went through watching the St. John's and Villanova game, like marked down every time he got pulled out and why. And it was like, okay, well, he took a shot out of the flow of the offense. He held the ball for 10 seconds while dribbling into an isolation and ended up turning the ball over. Like he gets pulled for reasons that make sense, but also like it's been I think that the UConn game was a lot better for him in terms of overall like offensive process and seeing how he's just trying to be part of it. It still wasn't perfect. And again, it's more like you see a lot of the I get why you are this high level prospect from what you're doing physically and the shot creation potential and driving, but also like I think it's kind of like we talked in a different way, like we talked about with Jarris at the beginning of the year in terms of acclimating to the college level. I don't think he's there yet on either end. He's looked more comfortable of late, but I am very interested to see what this looks like in a month.
Yeah, the Whitmore one is complicated, and it's almost more complicated than Jarris because Jarris like is just trying to fit into a great team that is great, has great guard play, has veterans, has talented youngsters around Jarris. Like, there's a lot there. Villanova's offense and its offensive execution. I mean, I know that they're like top 15 in offensive efficiency
It
right
does
now.
not feel like it when
nationally.
you watch them.
It does not feel that way when you watch them.
Did you see my tweet
I think
yesterday?
it's in. No, what was
I
it?
basically I'm interested to see what you think. I basically said Villanova are the Raptors are the Villanova of the NBA. Because that watching this Villanova team, I just feel like I'm watching the Toronto Raptors play basketball a lot of the time.
Jump stop Raptors, basically. Is that
Yes.
what we're talking here?
Shout out to Eric Dixon with like I think he hit like 7 pivot spins in a row in the game against UConn.
Beautiful
on one move. That was unreal. I love watching Eric Dixon play, but no, it's all of our creation comes through strength-based stuff, and we're not really actually creating space. It's just we're scoring over you because we're strong and have a lot of wings. That's the Villanova experience this year. Yeah.
Nothing they do is easy, it feels like.
Yeah, that's the way to put it.
Yeah, nothing they do is easy, from the fact that I think they struggle to initiate their offense. Like Mark Armstrong is playing point now, and he has a 1 to 2 assist rate to turnover rate. Chris Archdiakono has played some point. He just isn't good enough. Like honestly, like he can be a good backup point guard, but like he's not good enough to be a starting point guard, I think is reasonable to say in the Big East. Angelo Brizzi, it looks like is transferring. Haven't been a huge fan of his minutes. Like they just don't have a point guard that can get guys easy shots. Caleb Daniels has taken over some of the offense. He's more comfortable as a scorer. I guess I've liked the offense more when he's been on the ball, just because it does feel like he at least just knows the offense well enough now to make the right reads, get the right guys in the right spots, like everything like that. It's just that none of it feels easy. And it's not to say that it's not well spaced, because Eric Dixon is a legit 3-point shooter that like teams do guard out there now. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, teams guard Brandon Slater out there as well, is like a legit shooter, it feels like.
I swear to God, Brandon Slater's played at Villanova since like 2013. It feels like
yeah. Been forever, right? Teams certainly guard Caleb Daniels out there from 3. So like it's not a poorly spaced offense. It's just an offense that I think is almost in desperate need of a creator.
Yeah.
And I think that when Cam comes in, he feels like he can be that guy. And it looks nothing like what Villanova typically is, I guess, which is like so in the flow, just running an offense for 30 seconds at a time, finding that good shot. Well, they have even less ability to separate, it feels like, than what a normal Villanova roster has. And I think when Cam comes in, he thinks he can be that guy, maybe a little bit more. And the results are hit or miss, I think is the way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. I don't know if you've noticed this too. He's slipping a lot. Like it's almost felt like his strides are too long at times. Like it
Mm,
really, like that's been a big issue for him. A lot of his turnovers are coming off of um, like he hasn't even felt comfortable jumping at times. Like obviously, you still see the vertical pop because of how nutty of an athlete he is, but it's I think especially in the St. John's game, you saw like the stride stop stuff is really good, um, or interesting, I should say. It's not always good, but the like it almost feels like he doesn't quite have his feet under him. And again, I think part of that is like just getting acclimated to the college level, but it has stood out because it pops in every game. So that's been a little bit odd to notice. But like you mentioned too, like he every time he tries to run a ball screen, it doesn't feel like in the flow of the offense. Like there was a play where um and everything is and again, part of this is noting too, like he's 18, 19 years old, so there's going to be growing pains, but like everything has felt very premeditated. A lot of passes I think are right idea, but it's staring a guy down or pretty clear that he's going to make that read. Like the velocity and like actual ball placement isn't bad, but it's just again like it's like okay, I'm making this decision before it's happening, and it's how it feels with a lot of his shots too. And that's part of why I think some of the shot selection has been tough because it isn't coming in the flow like you're mentioning. A lot of it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take over here. And also that's part of what's leading to him being on the bench. But that's also like, that's a difficult part of being on this roster because who really is creating? Like, I am interested to see, like, I feel like they did more of it in the UConn game with Eric Dixon running dribble handoffs.
yeah.
I think that's
Yep.
probably the way that they need to go because he is actually a pretty good DHO playmaker, but it's yeah, I mean, exactly. Like there's just not a lot there in terms of actually creating stuff. So you're either asking him, okay, well, create or don't. And it's a very odd boundary. I guess where do I want to go next? In terms of like how have you felt about the defense? The
Like he's a
it's
freshman and is
yeah,
still figuring out where he needs to be rotationally and in team defense.
defensive,
When
yeah.
he's
It
when he's
was
on ball, I think he's okay.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all of the other stuff that I think is he's still look, he probably wasn't practicing a ton, and it feels like a guy that missed a big part of the season early on and missed a big part of the preseason, particularly, and is just maybe like a step behind everyone right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the same thing with that. Like um, it's the kind of thing where I'm like, this is not great right now, but I'll have a better opinion on it, or I'll have an opinion I feel like sharing in like
Yeah.
another 5 games because it was drastically better from like the first couple games to even again like the game against UConn wasn't great, but I think he's
Yeah.
the best way for me to describe it on both ends of the floor is that he's trying to home
UConn is
run hit.
hard as well. Like
Yeah,
UConn is really,
UConn
really
is
hard.
really hard. Their offense is
They put
unreal
you
too, but
through an absolute ringer in terms of off ball action. They are hard to guard. Like even if you try to hide someone on like Alex Caravan's like running off shit.
mhm.
So UConn's hard. Like UConn is a good test, but like the UConn game for Villanova that I'm interested in is on March 4th when they play UConn in the last game of the year,
Yeah.
because I think that that'll be a better test for Whitmore in terms of what he's learned at that point. How does he adjust to what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to put it. But like I think the way that I would describe him right now is that he's trying to home run hit everything. And I want to see him just go for singles and doubles, do the consistent thing, find his flow in the offense. Because even on defense, like, again, he was better at it in the game against UConn, but he's trying to jump for every steal. Like,
So
he's
here
really
would
trying to
be
make things happen.
here'd be where I would ask you this. Like, what is a single or a double for him? Because again, like to me, a single or a double is okay. I'm going to run the offense with Villanova. I'm going to run within the offense. We're going to try and get something easy. Nothing's easy. Like that,
Yeah.
there isn't like a single or a double that's there oftentimes. You have to, it's a foul, like you're fouling the ball off. It feels like a lot of the time more than hitting singles and doubles within their half court offense. So what do singles and doubles actually look like for you when Villanova's point guards like can't really feed him the ball like on a cut, right?
Yeah, sure. I guess that's a good point. I think the single or double would be more just trying to read and react a little bit more instead of just
Mm.
predetermining stuff. Um, Like, don't just, and again, like that's easier said than done, but I think that's the idea, obviously.
Yeah, like Eric Dixon comes out for a dribble handoff. You're on the opposite wing. You know, point guard comes up, takes the dribble handoff on the wing. You 45 cut from the opposite wing and try and get an easy bucket that way,
Yeah,
maybe.
because it's the
And
kind of
hope
offense
that the
where,
guard sees you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the kind of offense where I think you're really going to, like even if you're playing the right way, I think it's gonna be hard to. You're not going to be noticed as much, but I think if you aren't playing the right way, you're going to be noticed a lot more for probably not the great things, unless you're shooting in like ungodly.
Yeah.
Because I think what's really tough is when you're playing an offense like that, if it's stagnant and there's not a ton of stuff going on, and the ball's not really moving side to side, then it's going to look like shit, and that's what it's looked like for the most part. Like,
Yeah. So here's the thing that's worried me a little bit about Whitmore. What have you thought about the handle going toward the basket and like the footwork going toward the basket? I think that that's been because in theory, that's what should be open with the way that Villanova's offense works, playing the 5-man away from the rim. I felt like he's struggled a little bit in that respect early on. I think that his shake getting to like his pull up is really good. I think that like his handle trying to like pick up the ball and like put his shoulder into a guy or using the power that like we know that he hasn't been quite as good as what I was hoping it would be at
yeah,
times this
I would agree. I think that's kind of like I mentioned earlier with the slipping a little bit. That's always come
year. Yeah.
downhill. Like when he's trying to go downhill, it feels like again like his strides are like too far in front of him at times. And I think like you're mentioning, like it's the footwork to actually go downhill just hasn't really been there yet. It's also the kind of thing where I feel like that I think that's going to improve as he gets
I
more
agree.
used to it because it
Yeah.
feels like again like part of the premeditation. His feet are like moving before he even catches the ball. Like it just everything feels kind of out of sync. Um, so I think that's going to improve. Obviously, like it needs to. If that doesn't improve, then I'll be a lot more concerned. But
Yeah.
again, just like based on everything that we've seen before college, like I'm not too worried about it. It's more like I was hoping that we'd see it right away. But I think as we get deeper into Big East play, we're going to see more of that. At least that's again, that's the hope. But yeah, because especially too, like you're mentioning, like the side to side dribble has looked awesome. The pull up stuff has looked awesome. It's just
I
stringing
also
together.
think for what it's worth, this is something I've talked about, like in respect to like missing stuff on Scotty Barnes, right? Like I think I missed the fact that these guys that are like big, powerful, physical wings that are like 6'7" or taller, they can struggle with the constraints of just like the college basketball court because there are just going to be guys around in the paint more often than there are in the NBA. I think that like just that little bit of extra space in the mid-range area is really going to help him in terms of finding those little creases and little driving lanes. It will make him more effective as a driver at the next level than what he is at Villanova, but it hasn't been incredible so far, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would agree with that.
Okay, Schindler game time.
Oh boy.
This is where I ask Mark Schindler, would you take this prospect or that prospect in respect this time to Cam Whitmore? Typically, I start a little bit lower on the board and then slide up as we go. Okay, would you take Cam Whitmore or Bryce Sensabaugh?
Whitmore.
I agree with you. I almost made you talk about Bryce Sensabaugh today because
That can be our next week guy.
I quite like Bryce a lot. I am a big fan of Bryce Sensabaugh. I'm a big fan of the shot creation. I think that some of draft Twitter is getting a bit aggressive. Talking about him as like, oh my God, this is like a top 3 pick, top 5 kind of guy. I don't quite see that because I think he is not quite good enough defensively at this point. And I think a lot of the shots he's generated so far, he's made difficult shots, which maybe he can just do that. Like, but it's just harder when you're 6'6" to live off of that diet of shot in the NBA.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what happens, and this is not me trying to be unfair or low on him, but it's like what happens when he stops hitting, 65% on pull up twos, like, and that's been a lot of his shot diet. And it's like, again, it's been awesome to watch, but
yeah, if he hits 50% on pull up twos, that's like an all NBA level, and he's shooting higher than that right now. Like this is where we're at, right? I mean, I really like Bryce and I have him as a top 20 guy. I just think we need to slow down a little bit based off the shot diet.
For sure.
Okay. Jarris Walker or Cam Whitmore?
I think it would depend on the team, but I'd probably go Cam.
I would go Cam. Asar Thompson or Cam Whitmore?
I think I'd go Asar. Thompson twins are in the top 4 for me pretty unquestionably. I would have them over Cam right now.
Undecided for me. Look, on my current board, I think.
Well, if I'd known I could have said undecided, I think I would have said undecided.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I would go Asar over Cam.
I think I would go Cam over Asar. I like the frame a little bit more. I like the shot projection a little bit more. None of it is easy though. Mm-hmm. Brandon Miller or Cam Whitmore?
Cam for sure.
Okay. Anthony Black or Cam Whitmore?
Cam Whitmore.
Okay. And then there's no way that you're taking Cam over Scoot Henderson, right?
No, not at all.
Okay. So somewhere in the 5 to 7 range on you for Cam Whitmore right now.
That's where I'll be right now.
I'm in the 4 to 5, 4 to 6 range. I really like Cam. I think that almost what we've seen this year is an interesting sample, yet almost not representative of what he is capable of showing, in part because of the injury at the start of the season, and in part because Villanova is just not all that good.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to watch where this goes from here. Mark, please tell the people where they can find your work. Please tell the people what's going on in your life.
You can find me. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MG_Schindler. That's where I'm most active, where everything's going to be. I feel like I need to write a million things in the next couple of days, including one of the bigger things we ever worked on. So it's going to be a long week. It's going to be a good week, but yeah, a long week. What else is up? I'm just I feel like I'm probably going to release my first board soon, because I feel like I'm finally ready to kind of be at that with how I've seen everything kind of develop this year. So yeah, I'll let you know when that happens. But yeah, I appreciate you, Sam. This was fun, man.
Mark, you are a youth. I think that is a fair way to describe you.
That is a fair way to describe me.
You're a youth of 25, 26. Can't remember 25. How old you are. You're one of the two. Have you watched Wednesday yet on Netflix?
I have not. I've heard of it. I have not watched. I know it's the Jenna Ortega one, right?
Yes. It is terrific. It is one of my favorite things I've seen this year, I think. I just genuinely really enjoy it.
Well, it's on the watch list.
Yeah, it is awesome. I think it's the best thing Tim Burton has done. He directed the first 4 episodes. I think it's the best thing Tim Burton's done in 15 years.
Okay, wow. All right, so that's really good.
Yeah. I don't know how good that is, because if you look through Tim Burton's track record, it's not great recently. But I genuinely think it's the best thing Tim Burton's done in a very, very long time, maybe even 20 years. Really, really good. Really, really fun show that I've enjoyed substantially. It is that oeuvre, that macabre aesthetic that Tim Burton is so well established and known for. Jenna Ortega is phenomenal. The entire show is great. I have a great time with it every single time I put it on. I think I'm through 6 episodes.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely on the watch list. I haven't gotten to watch really anything the last week or so, but I'm hoping this weekend I get to catch up on some stuff, and we'll have a lot more to talk about next week.
Terrific. I love it. Mark, that's Mark Schindler over there. I'm Sam Vecini. This has been the Game Theory podcast. I will have rookie rankings coming this week. I sent out a tweet asking, look, the way the rookie rankings are going to work now is I'm going to write about 4 guys, and one slot is going to be the people's pick. The people's pick in terms of who I write about for rookie rankings. I've gotten some great votes. It seems like Jalen Williams from Oklahoma City is in the lead right now. Which one? You guys will have to let me know which one. But the people's choice right now is Jalen Williams. If you don't want it to be Jalen Williams, by all means, hit that link, hit that tweet, say the name that you want me to write about, and I will write about it. The person that gets the most mentions, gets the most votes, basically wins, and they're the people's choice for this month for rookie rankings. So keep it locked here. and keep it locked over there because I'm actually going to start writing a bit more substantially coming up here in the new year. Until next time, though, we will talk soon. Bye.